Yay! What is up, everybody? What, is that too loud?
No, I was just
Not ready.
all of a sudden, just Gus came wandering over here, and he's just like, "What's going on,
Classic.
guys?" And then we're live. So.
Classic Ginger Runner Live start.
Super professional.
Super professional. We obviously run a pretty tight ship here. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 240.
So crazy.
Second to last episode of the year. We have one more next week. But tonight's pretty special. Our guests are coming to us all the way from a cabin so far into the woods that they might not be able to make it through the whole show with the internet. We're crossing our fingers, but we have some adventures on our show tonight that are pretty badass. Jason Schlarb is joining us again. It's been a long time since we've had him on the show. Joining us as well is Mere June, who I'm excited to talk to. Both of them have been traveling the world, racing, adventuring, filming, documenting a lot of what they've been doing out there, and it just looks badass, crazy, and beautiful. Like where they're going is just been incredible, and they both have big races under their belt now here towards the end of the year. The big plans for 2019. So Jason and Mere are going to be joining us on tonight's show to talk to us all about what they've been up to in 2018. So sit back, relax, everyone. Ginger Runner Live, episode number 240 begins
now.
Ginger Runner. Yay! What is up, everybody? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 240. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy Mondays to spend a little bit of it with us.
And thanks for being patient while we got things rolling here, guys.
Yeah, we're starting just a little bit late, a little bit past 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here. Our guests tonight are coming to us from a very remote location. I didn't even ask exactly where it was, but it's remote. They are off of a Wi-Fi signal that is very precarious, so we're going to hope that it makes it through the whole show. I mean, that's part of the fun of doing a live show, especially with these guests, is that they have, like, I can't wait to talk to them about what they've been up to in 2018, and I hope that the internet gods are in our favor tonight, because knowing us, it's going to be like this incredible story and how they're racing towards the finish line, like first place, about to cross the finish line, and then the internet will go out and we won't capture the whole story. So
exactly,
crossing our fingers.
Kim Wrinkle in the chat room says he thinks that they're coming from around 8,500 feet. He says so. He said the internet is probably as reliable as it is where he lives. They're
essentially in space. So this is going to be a really fun episode. I'm very excited to be joined by Jason Schlarb and Mere June. They're going to talk to us all about their incredible 2018s, huge races across the globe, tons of adventure, China, Oman, Hard Rock, and beyond. They've been filming and documenting so much of it and posting in films and stuff like that throughout this year that I'm excited. I'm excited to kind of pick their brains a little bit about how that process worked this year and going into next year. Of course, at the top of every episode, we like to thank those who help these episodes even happen. And those are our Patreon supporters. Patreon.com/TheGingerRunner. For as little as $1 a month, you can join and be a part of the crew. We have an incredible community of people who support us week in and week out. So we'd like to thank them at the top of every show. 3 individuals in particular: Chris Lee from Hong Kong and his organization Trailblazer. They showcase all those amazing trails in Hong Kong. He's a wonderful ultra runner himself. Just now coming up is 100K trail walker, I think is what it's called. I always forget the name of it. That he is crushing with his teammates, and so Chris is just a wonderful human being. Rick Bjarnason and his team at cheekymonkeymedia.ca. They're redoing the gingerrunner.com website right now. A wonderful team of very talented web designers. I can't say enough positive things about how they've treated me and my site and just my detailed brain. They've been great. And Rick himself is an ultra runner, currently training for Sinister 7 and Fat Dog 120 up there in British Columbia. And finally, Brian Sands, a wonderful longtime viewer of the show, huge supporter. He ran his first marathon last October, his first 50K this last summer, just completed his second 50K 2 weekends ago. Just a wonderful human being, very inspiring. So it's awesome to have Brian on board as well. So that does it for our Patreon thank yous, and a lot going on this week here at Ginger Runner HQ, because we have Gingermas. Yes. Happening this coming weekend.
Busy week.
Hugely busy week. If you are unaware of what any of this is, just follow on social media. You guys know the drill. And all your answers all your answers shall be questioned. Going to be a great night. Okay. Our guests, as I mentioned, are coming to us from a remote cabin, apparently above 8,500 feet.
That could be true, or maybe it's not.
We don't know. I don't know where they are. Let's just introduce them. Jason Schlarb and Mere June are joining us. Yay!
Yay!
Hi.
Hello.
So, where the hell are you?
Well, we're actually at like 8,200.
Okay.
And
Legit.
we live about 15 miles out of Durango in the woods.
Colorado.
We're on the edge of the wilderness. That's the Wiminuche Wilderness, which makes up part of the Hard Rock course. As the crow flies, Meredith and I actually went for a hike, backpacking. And here's Snuffles.
Yeah.
Dogs are always welcome on the show.
We hiked from like Maggie's Gulch over by Haviland, Mary Lakes, and came down to the reservoir right by our house. So we're not that far away from the Hard Rock course at all. And we're right on the edge of that wilderness. And the Wi-Fi kind of sucks out here. So sorry if that screws things up.
I mean, it's okay. Like, as we were kind of teching before the show, I was like, oh man, this is going to be one of those shows. Like, we had Ann Trayson on at one point, and the tech was not working. I was like, we might just have to go to voice. But it looks perfect now. So
Awesome.
I'm going to hold on to it. It's great.
Good.
Of course, we are joined by these two wonderful adventurers, but Kim, you are in the chat room.
I'm here as well, yes. And just a reminder, you guys, we are live. So if you guys have questions for our guests, please pop them into the chat room, and we'll be pulling them throughout the hour.
So we now know where our guests are residing, but it sounds, actually, the location itself sounds amazing. What is it like having the Hard Rock course essentially in your backyard and those incredible Colorado mountains as your training grounds?
Well, it's pretty easy to access. I actually just moved to Colorado about a year ago from Wyoming. And so this summer I had quite a bit of time to actually we'd go up to Silverton and hang out for just a couple of days and just run all over the Hard Rock course. It's impressive. I mean, it's great that it's just so close, and it's awesome training.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jason, for you, I mean, you've been everywhere, right? So this has got to be incredible.
You know what? It's kind of a point of pride. Like, when I came to Durango almost 5 years ago, I could live anywhere that I really wanted to in the position that I was in, and this was my favorite. The San Juans were my favorite, and this cabin in particular is, it's a big ponderosa pines like this and spruce pines, and we're on a little bit over an acre, and it's a small, very conservative 1,000 square foot kind of space, but
wow.
This is really home for us, and Felix too. He's over here trying to be quiet over in the corner, so if you hear him, what's going on. So we can run right out of the backyard here and into the trail. So it's really cool. But don't try to call us, and don't expect emails to come quickly. That kind of stuff.
Usually we got to go to town and go to the library to deal with all that stuff. But I kind of like it.
Yeah, that actually sounds really perfect.
It does. Just having that sort of wall between you and civilization is actually something that, like, there's that romantic side to that, that disconnect from not obligation, but just the news, and not having to really deal with kind of the negative side of things. You can really just focus on self-betterment and getting out there and enjoying nature and being at one. I think that's awesome. Have there been difficulties?
We for like 4 years, I've been cutting our own wood. We don't have a heater really. It's freezing cold because we've been gone for like 4 or 5 days. There are some challenges, but it's cabin life. But and as you were kind of introing, we've been doing a lot. We've been traveling a lot, and Meredith's been telling me, like, she's like,
I'm done.
We got to get back here, and we're gonna stay. Yeah. We're not going anywhere. We're gonna actually like be here. I don't want to do anything.
So. I just want to sit in the house.
Yeah. So this is finally the off season, because we just got back from a race. We'll talk about it later, but this is day one. I just picked up Meredith in Telluride from being home in Pennsylvania, etc. And
that's got to feel good. Like Kim and I talk often about. We're homebodies in the sense that we love our space. We love our small little world that we have here. Of course, we love to go out and adventure, and whether that's locally or around the country or globe or whatever, we like to do those trips. But just within this last year and a half, I was on tour for a long time, and we did a lot of traveling separately. And coming home was one of the best feelings. And we've been on this stint now where we haven't really traveled too far, and it's been awesome.
Yeah,
it's amazing. So, are you both kind of locked in now for a good period of time, or do you?
I hope so.
Okay.
Very much so.
Yeah, I just got home today, and I've been gone for, I think, 2.5 weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just been international flights.
Yeah.
And then I was back east visiting my family. And, especially after running a really hard ultra, you just get tired. And then you do this international flight, and then you do family time for like 5 days nonstop. And it's just like, I'm tapped out. I'm done.
Meredith got sick.
I got really sick.
Oh.
And then while she was over, getting worn out, I decided to do some implemented injury, and I went to a holiday party in Albuquerque with one of my best military buddies, and crack a rib wrestling. So I don't ask me to lean over and touch the phone. I'll scream. So, we're really ready for off season.
Yeah. I just want to lay in the bed. I want to put a Christmas tree up and decorate it and call it good.
It's the season. It's the season. It sounds like you guys have some time to do that. Before we start digging in, because of course this has been a year for you two. A lot of traveling, but a lot of racing and a lot of podium, if not winning. It's just so much awesome. We have a lot to catch up on. Of course, we are again live. We have a live chat room. And if you have questions for either Mere or Jason, drop them in there, and Kim will pull them aside. What do we have?
We have a very important question in the chat room from Callie, and Callie wants to know, what's the dog's name?
Yeah, we love trail dogs. What was
Sneffels.
Snuffles.
Snuffles.
I love that. And we were just talking about the off season and kind of being at home. And Ian Hurley in the chat room asked a question for you both: any ski mountaineering adventures in Colorado this winter?
Yeah. So I've also dabbled on the U.S. team for a couple years now, and the last World Championships was 2 years ago.
I like that, by the way. Dabbled on the
U.S. team.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Amazing.
So I've raced 2 World Championships, and I also spent a winter living in Chamonix racing World Cup. And I wanted to do one more U.S. team. And, 2 years ago, I was in really good shape, and I ended up getting injured at work, and I actually could not race. And so what's kind of tricky about off season right now is I have a U.S. qualifier this weekend in A Basin on Saturday. And so I'm just trying to figure out, I would love to do one more U.S. team and to go to one more U.S. World Championships. But after having such a big year, and being sick right now, it's a little unknown. I'm just going to play it day by day and see what happens. Like I said, I would love to do one more year or one more season racing with the U.S. But if not, we'll probably do like the Telluride Rando race, and maybe do some teams races that are really fun, like the Grand Traverse or the Power of Four. But I'm currently waiting to see how I feel and kind of make that call in a couple days. So it's a little nerve wracking. It's hard to because I have not ski mode raced at all. And I just ran a huge ultra, and it'll be 2 weeks post big ultra with lots of vert. And ski mode racing is so far different than ultra running. It's like just super intense LT right off the bat within like the first 20 minutes, and it's like hold on for dear life at that point.
And then over in 2 hours. So.
Yeah, it's only like a 2 hour and 15-minute race, and it's very hard, a lot harder I think than sometimes ultra running.
It's a sport that I'm just now beginning to dabble in, as Kim can attest, because the gear.
So you're on the U.S.
I'm
team,
I'm dabbling
competing
in the Olympics real quick.
Right.
Just dabbling.
The gear is like the hardest part of the whole sport. I always joke because the first time I ever ski mo raced, I got boots for $5 from a consignment shop.
Wow.
And I went and I had powder skis, and I couldn't understand why I didn't do well. And then I looked at everybody what they were racing on. I was like, oh, okay.
You have 20-pound boots per foot, and everyone's like,
it makes all the difference. That's the thing. Is it literally makes all the difference. So.
Now she has 3,000 or whatever carbon fiber boots. So
right, like the difference is dramatic in price. You can see that pretty quickly.
I always joked because like Luke Nelson, who also did a lot of it, skimo racing and running, he's like, Meredith, you're going to get a pair of race boots and you're going to take 20 minutes off your time. And I was like, yeah, right, no way. But he was totally right. Like, I was like, oh, okay, like now I can actually compete. Like, it's so true. I mean, yeah, it's ridiculous.
See, now I'm worried that like what's holding me back.
You don't need another. Your boots are fine.
Are they?
They're fine.
I don't know.
You're just dabbling.
I want to dabble. I want to dabble in the Olympics. I need to get $3,000 boots. Jason, are you joining in some of these skiing expenditures? Are you going out there enjoying the snow on your own?
I'm going to do what Meredith does. I'm going to be. I'm like along for the ride. You know, I've skied my whole life.
Yeah.
You know, I can ski well down. You know, there's some ultra athletes that have switched over and they're amazing up and they have no idea how to ski.
Right.
I went to college in Bozeman and skied more than I went to school, that kind of stuff. But again, it's a different kind of stimulus and it's kind of trying like, hey, you know, you're a great tennis player. You should think about going for the ping pong world championships. You know, it's not quite like that. You know?
As a professional ping pong player, we call it table tennis, and totally get it.
It's a different fitness level, you know, and it's hard to make that transition, but it's also super beneficial. I think to be able to not be running all the time, to be doing harder races, like, you know, really be in the pain cave. And still collecting vert, which does translate into ultra running. You know, like it's a little bit easier to do all the vert throughout the winter than like try to go running. You know, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, right. It's low impact. We'll both be skiing. It's just rather how many races and how seriously we take it. So that's. I mean, remember the cabin's elevation. So we're not trail running like, you know, guys in the Pacific Northwest and you know. SoCal. So
and fingers crossed we have a good snow year because last year we had like no snow, which was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So hopefully this year we do, and it's a safe snowpack so we can actually go and play and have fun on some mountains.
Yeah, all my friends in Arizona and Colorado talked about last year's season was just pretty abysmal. Meanwhile, the Northwest was awesome.
Yeah, I cried.
Sorry.
I mean, I lived in Jackson Hole for 12 years, and so, you know, to leave here on a 700-inch year and then come to like zero snow was like very, very depressing. It was not cool.
But we ran a lot. Look at the season we had.
Yeah, we did. It's
worth it.
As someone who loves skiing, Mare, I can only imagine that, it's heartbreaking to not have that passion or the ability to even do it. Of course, you're both ultra runners and you both do very well in the sport. So let's start getting into that because this year has been big on that front for both of you. I'm not only inspired by your results and what you're both able to do, but just the amount of traveling that you have packed into this year and the performances that you were able to get out of your bodies with the amount of traveling. Because I know what I'm like after a long travel and you show up to a race start and you're like, ooh, those 3 days or, you know, the last 3 days have been tough on my body. So I really want to start digging into that. You both went to China. Was it a number of times? Did you go a couple of times this year, or was it one long trip?
It was one trip this year, but within the year, from the time we went to China this year until last year, we were there 3 times. So in 2017, we raced there in May, and then we raced again in November, and then we went back this March.
Wow. We had that's just so much traveling and to remote regions as well. I know that you both did Gao Ligong, the 55K by UTMB. We had guests on the show that also ran that race, and it just sounded incredible, sounded super intense. How does racing in China, since you did a couple of races there, how does it compare to the United States as far as support, aid stations, that sort of thing for people who are maybe looking to travel internationally and do some of these big races. You're going to say something?
Oh, I was going to say, we had a question in the chat room also, so maybe we can take it a little bit more broad. The question was from Nathaniel in the chat room, and he had kind of asked very similar to you, except he extended it to like racing in US, Europe, Middle East, Asia. Like, how are they each unique? What are the differences?
Yeah, we'll expand it to the broader global comparison, but let's start with China, and then you can kind of talk about your comparisons of other places you've been this year.
There's some big differences, obviously, but I think that the cool part, and I won't go into the motivation so much as the differences. In China, you can get government support, and so all of a sudden you can have blockbuster monster event with all kinds of money, support, fireworks, announcers from the Olympics, press, all this kind of stuff, and like free travel.
Wow.
We brought a videographer, we made a film about it, and the budget for any race in the U.S. and even besides maybe UTMB, that would never happen because they consider it a government tourism kind of motivation. Yeah. So you got that aspect. The second aspect is liability, insurance, etc. That ridiculous mandatory equipment for 50K in France.
Right.
We can go and run up, at 14,000 feet in the dark, in the snow. First time it's ever been done.
Oh, and nothing.
And, we feel like we're going to die. Same thing with that race that we'll probably talk about later in Oman.
Yeah.
That's a big difference. And then the third part is China in particular is huge and crazy, and there is every kind of landscape that you could imagine. So that's really neat. But the competition, unless they bring it in, it's brand new in China.
China's in like right now, ultra running is booming in China. Like they're really, really into it. They're really excited about it, and so they're just trying to put on as many races as possible and do pretty much whatever they want, which is like Jason said, like there's no liability. And so they'll have a crazy high altitude race and you're just going on your way. And it's really fun and awesome because of that, because you get to explore something new. But overall, they're very excited. And, like the Galadong race was, you can see at the start of our video how intense they took it to like the next level. It's 5:30 in the morning and it was a legit disco party. There's laser beams. Everybody's excited. There's like the cool thing is they have like everywhere we've gone, they've had like some kind of traditional dance or something that's unique to the area that we're visiting. And overall, people are really excited. We're like in the US, nobody cares what you're doing. They think you're crazy. Like that's too far for them to drive. Why would anybody go run that?
Right.
And so the enthusiasm with the culture is what's so addicting and fun to be a part of, because they're like, who doesn't want to see that in their sport? It's great.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things that we noticed in the videos, of course, the pictures and everything that came back after Galigong specifically. It looked incredible. Like it looked so over the top as far as what we're used to in the States. And it's so interesting to hear about the government support. I had no idea about that they have budgets, that they have the budgets to go like, listen, we're going to bring in Jason Schlarb, Mere June. We're going to bring in these expert athletes from the U.S. and, really showcase what the sport's capable of. That's awesome. That's really neat that's part of it.
Yeah, and it works for them as far as like, they're trying to do promotional tourism and bring people in, and I think it is working for them. And it's also the really interesting thing is, I always thought it was a little weird, but it's taking Western culture to show them what they can be doing. And so we're having an influence then on the people that are in trail running. It's kind of showing them like what is capable in your country. And it's interesting when you talk to people that are living in those areas, because they would have never thought of that before, but it's taking that Western influence on that culture to be like, okay, there is a lot going on, especially when it comes to women in particular.
Is it approachable for average athletes to go to these events? It's one thing to have top tier elite athletes being paid for to travel and to be a part of this, they want to put names like yours on the docket saying, look who's going to show up and look who's going to race. Is it something that I or Kim or an average Joe can actually go and participate with? Like, are the logistics just insane, or were you able to experience any of that level?
It really depends on where the race is, obviously. But, for instance, our first race that we did in November, we had to take a flight to Beijing and then another big long flight over towards Chengdu, and then like a 5-hour bus ride. Because I mean, it's like, it's a huge country.
Right.
But Adam Campbell and Jamil Curry, and they went out to Lijiang and did the sky race. I think, this year.
Yep.
In May, and they had a great time, and the logistics weren't too difficult. So I mean, they got it done, and they also it's they really broadcast it to the community within China. They had a lot of people. They paraded us around. They had amazing press conference. They made it so that other people in their communities could kind of get their head wrapped around it, opposed to just let's go gather somewhere in the forest, run the race, and it's done.
But UTMB, that's putting these races on internationally, they're selling it as a package.
Right.
Here's the official hotel. And like for this past race in Oman, they had every itinerary from every racer. So they kind of know logistically what's going on to get people to where they need to be. And my sense was, and don't quote me like 100% on this, but my sense was if you were flying in from Europe, so you found out, okay, UTMB is putting this race on, you're kind of booking the package all together. Mm-hmm. So everybody stayed at the same hotel. Everybody has the same food reservation, and then they're doing logistically all the travel for you. So for the Oman race, and I got the sense for the UTMB Gala China race, yes, I think anybody could sign up, go do it, and be taken care of pretty well.
Like Marathon des Sables, similar way like that too.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah.
I definitely want to start talking about Oman, because I feel like that you both just came back from the event itself. Jason, you won the event, tying for the win, which is now that's your second. We'll talk about this at some point, I know, but this is your second actual tie for a win, which is fascinating. My question is, we'll get to this. We don't have to answer it now, but I'm like, do you like the tying, or is it, what is it that makes this happen? Or do you guys agree, like at mile 10, we're going to tie this 80 miles from now, that sort of thing? We'll cover that, I know, because I want to start to build up to exactly what this experience was like. When did you find out that you were both traveling to Oman to race?
Well, I got this invitation. A lot of elite guys and gals, through the help of ITRA and all that. We get these invites, a lot of them. And it stuck out because I'm like, to be frank with you, I didn't even know where Oman was exactly on the map.
Right.
And I've been to Europe quite a bit. I've done the Tearaware, New Zealand, North American races, down through Central America, even in South America. I have not gone to the Middle East, and I part of it was like, that's not my thing. That's not my like sweet spot for, I want to be alpine lakes and glaciers and mountains and rivers. But it was like, okay, this is outside my comfort zone, but I want to experience as much as I can, because I know it's valuable for both Meredith and I to travel and have that. And so it was kind of like, before I even knew where it was on the map, I was like, yeah, let's check this out. And so we both discussed it. And then also we had, the opportunity to do this filming thing, and it made sense. And so before, even up to arriving in Oman, I really didn't know what to expect. And, the punchline is that we were both blown away in a positive way. And that's not trying to sell it. That's not like, because, we did well, Meredith being on the podium and I winning, but it was great if we would have like tripped and fell and not even ran the race. The actual experience was beautiful.
I think we knew we were going to Oman though before Run Rabbit Run. So by the end of August, we kind of knew that's how the season was going to go. So
wow. And even Run Rabbit Run, you both did incredibly well. Incredibly well. Mere 5th place, and Jason, you pulled some cash at the end there. Nice little chunk of change. It's awesome to be able to race so often too. You know, touching on that, you both raced a lot this year. Did incredibly well in all of your races, respectively. By the time you got to Oman, was it a matter of, is my body even going to hold up at this point? Did you have any of that sort of worry going into it, both of you, or was it, I'm ready, let's do it?
Stories.
Yeah,
two totally different stories.
My season started off really, really hard. So prior to going into 2018, it actually really started last year. I had a chronic sinus infection for over a year. And so 2017, when I went to UTMB, I had a super bad sinus infection, and I ended up having to get sinus surgery this year. I did like 5 rounds of antibiotics. That was just so harsh on my system. And so, you know, last year, at the beginning of this year, my training was just so inconsistent and it just wasn't not there. I mean, when we went to Gaelegong, I was not in shape and still had in February, I got really, really, really sick. I had to go to the hospital because I was nauseous and vomiting, and they didn't like my symptoms.
No.
Okay. They gave me a CT scan, and they're like, wow, my whole face, I just had a really bad infection. So by May, I had sinus surgery, and it took me until the beginning of July to actually start feeling good and to actually start training. And
Wow.
So my season started late. I ended up racing the Eiger in July, and it was okay. I was 8th, and I thought that was good for really not having any training in me that I was proud of, and for not.
I'll verify that it was very good for having all that happen.
It wasn't great, but I know I could do better. And so my season, coming into Oman, after Run Rabbit Run, that training cycle I had right before Oman was some of the best running I've ever had, and training, and really, really consistent. So I was excited. I was ready. I was like, let's do this. I want to get this done. So I wasn't like, oh my gosh, another race. Oh my gosh, it's the end of the year. My mindset was like, I don't care. I'm going. We're doing it. So Jason, you know, he's had a bigger year and has had a lot more training than I have, for sure.
Yeah, Jason, you say it was 2 very different stories. What was yours going into Oman?
My story, it basically can be summarized in your last week's guest. It's David Roach, going from a system that worked, that I was a D1 runner in college, had amazing speed, walked into this mountain running thing, and had some really good success, really good years, to the point where I was just kind of getting stale, doing the same thing, and kind of just beating myself up to shit and losing all my speed. To now rewind to 14 months ago, calling David and being like, having my first coach in ultra, and he's like, sure, I'll help you out. And he says it's a 3-year plan for me. But the 1-year result has been, for 2018, my best season I've ever had, all around. And going to running 100 to 140 mile weeks back in the day, to now doing 60 to 90 with always taking a day off, and look into all the stuff that David does. But anyways, the result is that I'm feeling great, running well, and continuing to improve. And Oman was just another testament to that. I didn't have any issues. I didn't feel the best that I could feel, but lo and behold, I just was able to do well, to do really well.
It's pretty awesome to hear that from both of your perspectives. One, starting the year with 6 to 7 months of injury and recovering from that, and being able to turn it around and actually get some amazing results with a 3rd place at Oman. And for Jason to have this be kind of the first year where you're doing half as much mileage as you're used to, but also having better results than you've ever had before. So I think we can dig into this. Before we do, of course, we have tons of live questions. Our chat room is blown up. So Kim, what do we got?
There's a lot in there. Yeah. Question from Kim in the chat room. Kim asked a question for both of you. How soon before the race were you both made aware of just how technical the Oman race was? Example, helmets and ropes, etc. And was it intimidating to you?
Well, that's a great question. So all that really sticks out in my head was it's technical, it's exposed, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like it didn't really faze me because both Jason and I love technical and we love exposure. Like that's what we like. At the end of the day, like I just love being in the mountains and climbing up stuff and running down them. Like so.
And let me define that. Like a lot of people love to run on technical stuff, but Meredith and I would like to go climb up using our hands. Via Ferratas in the Dolomites, or in Switzerland. So that's usually like the more the merrier. Like the
like
more gnar, let's do it.
Like last year we did an FKT with like free soloing 5th class, which is what people use ropes on. So we have a background where we're very comfortable in that setting. However, what was unique about Oman was a lot of this technical stuff. One, I had no idea that someone would do it in a race. So, and two, it was at the end of the race. It's like, at mile 70, we're going to have a 3,000 foot crazy technical ascent. And you're just like, it's just different when you're like totally gassed. Like you're just done.
And in the dark.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a trail. There's not even, I wouldn't be comfortable going down it in the dark. And I mean, it was like a one-way deal, and it was just like these little green reflectors marked along some kind of like scrambly route. And I was really nervous for Meredith, and I was really concerned that if somebody made a mistake, there was nobody stationed there or anything. And the pictures of us in the Via Ferrata gear and roped up and everything, that was at
mile
40 to 45 miles or something.
No, it was at mile 50.
Yeah.
It was like mile 50. And then this was at mile like 70 something.
Yeah.
And so Jason did it in the light and I did it halfway. It was right at the end of the day. So I did it halfway in the light and then at night. And what was really challenging for me was I was completely by myself. There was nobody in front of me, nobody behind me that I could see even with the headlamp on. And like I said, I love this stuff normally, but I'm not used to doing it when I'm so tired. And it mentally really drained me because it was like channeling my inner Alex Honnold at that point. Like, don't fall. Because I mean, I'm not exaggerating. Like, it really was like a no fall zone. It really was a no fall zone. If you fell, it was not going to be good for you.
It was like Killian and Emily's race, Tromsø.
The Tromsø.
But a lot longer.
But like, not being 20, 40K, it was 137K. So that don't want to go too long on this, but it was a super surprise. There was no pictures of the stuff. And it was exciting. Less than 30% completion rate.
There was like some photos of like one particular spot that they showed us, and basically what it looked like was like this ramp, and it had like I think it had like 1,000 foot drop off on the other side, but nowhere did it really say you're gonna be climbing. Like it wild. Really truly was climbing. Like you were not, like it was hands and feet. Like it was
I would
awesome.
Love it. I would.
This
go
is
back.
a nightmare scenario, by the way.
Now that we know it, like I would totally go back and still do it, but
Right.
I probably would make sure, like before I got to that climb, like I was super properly like fueled, hydrated, and like maybe didn't push as hard in the in the day, because by the time I got there, I was a little like just lightheaded and just kind of like, oh.
This is insane. Like normal humans, like I'm sitting here, my palms are sweating, just thinking through this imagery, because there's very little imagery of this. I think you guys saw before the race. It sounds like you saw a photo of it. I haven't seen anything. since the race has occurred.
I wish I took a photo. I really do. Like, I wish I took a selfie.
You probably were preoccupied.
I have a selfie on the Via Ferrata, and I took a video, but I really wanted to take a selfie on that, but I was just like so tired that I was just like, just keep going, like because it was phenomenal to see. I mean, it was like, wow.
Yeah,
it really was.
Being right next to the ocean, going up to nearly 10,000 feet, limestone formations and these things called wadis, which are like canyons. It wasn't a sandy kind of desert thing at all. It wasn't super hot, and it was never really that cold. It was quite ideal. And it's a beautiful place and really welcoming. And I would suggest this race to anybody that's a sky kind of runner that wants to do something that's not out there, an ultra sky.
Yeah,
it's really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Was there any sort of vegetation like cover that kept you in the shade at all during the whole thing, or was it pretty exposed?
It was pretty exposed, but it wasn't that terribly hot. It was like no higher than like 20 degrees Celsius, which is like
it was like 80 degrees at the most.
80 degrees.
But it was
there's
just
like scrubby trees that would scratch the shit out of you. That supposedly they don't absorb water through the roots, but through the leaves. I thought that was kind of cool. But cactusy, scrubby stuff.
And it's like
and a few junipers.
It's like the Grand Canyon, really.
Yeah.
Like it totally was like the Grand Canyon. And it's not like it's like super super hot, but the sun is intense. Like that's the other thing, you know, like there's no trees.
I'm peeling here.
Yeah, so the sun was intense. I mean, I never thought I'd ever wear that stupid desert hat, and I totally did. I was like, this thing looks so funny, and there I am. Like, I was like, I don't care how funny.
I love it. I'm in.
And like, I hated how that thing looked, but I was like, nope, it's a fit. Like that's worth it.
So I guess I'm also really curious. You get through the Via Ferrata section. Via Ferrata, if you're not familiar, is usually where there's staples or bolts put into the rock. You have a helmet, usually a harness. I think you guys had harnesses and you were beanered in. But it's you're climbing like metal rungs on the side of a cliff face, and you're usually clipped in somehow. So you get through that at mile 50. Not think like I'm assuming your mind is going, cool, that was that tough technical section. Like I'm through that. What do you do? Like, what if you're not Jason or Mere and you show up to the bottom of this 3,000 foot fully exposed death cliff?
I was worried for some people that I knew. Like I was very worried about some people that I knew, because I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know if they're gonna make it. Like I don't want them to go up it. Like I was very, very concerned about.
So was I. And you know what? 30% finish rate. So,
yeah.
I mean, there's a big part of the answer right there. There's a lot of UK French. I mean, there wasn't that many Omani people running it. So most of these people were like into the ultra thing. It wasn't like a bunch of just Joe Schmoes.
This isn't new. Yeah.
It kicked everybody's
a lot of the
ass.
Europeans, a lot of them did finish, but a lot of them, you know, like I said, you can go get on a Via Ferrata anywhere, you know, in Europe. So, I mean, they were probably very confident and used to that terrain, where the local, or, you know, there were some Asian runners that never experienced that before. And the other hard part too was it wasn't like we ran on a trail. Like there was very few buffed trail where you could just kind of like put your guard down and like go into autopilot. I mean, it truly was a race where you were just picking your feet up and consciously picking your feet up, because we were running on hard rock, and like you didn't want to fall on that. Like that would cut you like pretty bad. And so that was the other hard part about this course too, is that it was funny because some lady at the 50 mark, she was helping me, and she was French, and she came in with the organization, and I was like, this is harder than UTMB. She's like, oh no, you run around the deep mountains. And I was like, no way, this is not buff trail, okay? Like UTMB is hard because it's, you know, it's a long race with a lot of vert, and yeah, there's some technical spots, but I mean, this trail was like not buffed at all. Like we were just running on rock a lot of the course. I mean, there were sections, but not where you got like an hour just to like go bust it, you know, like, ooh, it was hard. It was very hard.
I'm freaking out. Like
I signed you up.
Damn it. Damn it. I'm going to be a part of that 70% that doesn't finish. I'll get to mile 5 and go, yeah, I'm done. I'm good.
You'd still be there. Just waiting.
I'm still be there. I missed my flight. I'm still stuck in the Omani desert. We have tons of live questions, of course. Lots about Oman. So let's get to some of those things. Go for it, Kim.
Yeah, there's a question from Nathaniel. He says, the video and images of UTMB Oman look challenging. Where does this race rank among the others that you've done?
You're both very seasoned. You've done some of the toughest races on Earth. How does this compare? Where does it compare?
I mean, for technical nature, and there's no race like that. Hard rock is not like that. It's not, up like Mount Segunyang race that we did, where you're cruising at 13,000 feet. But as far as technical nature and difficulty and challenging of climbs and descents, this is number one for both of us.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, it's so different, even at Mount Segunyang, where it's like a high altitude ultra, you can at least relax and like get into a groove. But when you're on a trail that is just constantly like changing so much, and it is not a trail, it's literally just like these little reflectors put on rock, and you're just running down rock. It's very hard physically, but it makes it harder mentally because you have to be so alert for such an amount of time. Like literally by the end of the race, I mean, it does happen every now and then, but I was mentally like, I was like a 7-year-old because I was just so tired and just so worked that it was just like everything annoyed me. It broke me down just a little bit, and you're just like, and especially if you're not expecting it. And so, yeah, I think for me, it was definitely the most technical course I've ever ran.
That's amazing. Amazing to think that this is the first year of it, and it is just such a standout. You'd think like, oh man, it's going to get harder?
They're supposed to go up to like 3,000 meters, include something else. And
yeah, they're going to go up like the highest peak in Oman next year.
It's actually not the highest peak in Oman. It's the highest peak in the Middle East.
Yeah.
It's the top of it. You can't actually go to the top because the top's like this military base. It's 3,500 meters. Like Google it, check this out. But they're supposedly going to try to go up to 3,000 meters, and Catherine Pelosi was like, "Yeah, we're gonna do it." Like, all right.
Oh my gosh!
And we're gonna make you do it backwards with the blindfold on your hands.
30-hour race, okay?
Right.
You might just make it 100-mile too.
Like
so.
That was another thing too.
If you want the craziest, go try this out. Man.
The other thing about the race was they said it's gonna be like your UTMB time, and so initially both Jason and I were like, "No way." No, like it's 85 miles, it's 25,000 feet of climbing.
No way.
Like,
yeah.
Get to this.
Spot on.
Yeah. For 85 miles. Like that was not screwing up.
Spot on.
That was good.
So did they have people go out and run this course beforehand?
I doubt it.
Oh, they went and checked it out, but I don't know about running it.
I don't think someone ran it in one day all the way through to figure it out. But they
put eyes on it, and they built. This is the positive thing too, is the people that kind of in charge of this. They built I think I can't remember the stat. It was a lot. It was like half the trail they went and kind of built.
They made it.
Oh wow, that's cool.
They're doing this again, back to that thing with that's unique outside of the European or North American ultra world, is they're doing this because they want to bring in tourism all around, and they're going to use this as a legacy trail. They didn't go and put the little pieces of plastic on the cactus. They went and made these reflectors and they painted, and which is really cool.
And
because
it will stay.
It keeps it for the Omani people.
They keep it. They want to keep it so that then people can use the trail all
legacy.
The time.
Yeah,
you can go and kind of like being in the Alps, we're going to go do this tour.
Mm-hmm.
So they've kept it up so that people can actually go and still enjoy the course.
Yeah.
Which is awesome.
Really cool.
That is awesome. That what a great way to keep it there for the locals to enjoy and be able to explore their own backyard.
Those kind of things.
Get to some more of the live questions.
There's a lot of people that are really interested in getting to the juicy information about the Thai finish.
So we'll go there. So Mere, an incredible finish, 3rd place female. I can't imagine what it took to like just finish it, let alone place third. So that's incredible. And Jason also an incredible finish, first place, tied. So this is one of those moments where it's like it's very unique. It is not the first time you have tied for first place, however, with a hard rock finish with your lovely friend Kilian. I'm very curious how this happens. How does this happen, Jason?
Me too, man. I am ashamed and then also proud, man. You know, I don't like to run with people in races. I also don't usually, like 10% of my running and training is with somebody else. I just don't like it because I need to do what I need to do. I'm a mature runner, let's call it. I'm 40. I know what I need to do, and I just get stressed about going too slow or going too fast. And frankly, you know, like a little bit in the early stages, I like to talk and chill and have fun and, you know, shoot the breeze a little bit. But after 20, 30K, you know, no more. And so all of a sudden, you know, I'm just with this guy and Gediminas and Sandra, another guy as well. And it just so happens that we just kept jockeying back and forth from the beginning. And I'm just like waiting for him to kind of die. And he's waiting for me to die. And we're never discussing, you know, kumbaya, I love you, and let's help each other. It was just like holding on to see when this guy's going to, you know, crack and kind of saving myself a little bit for a move. And then it gets, you know, hour 10, you know, hour 12. And then all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I can't just, you know, leave this guy. He's going to go take a piss. All right, I'll slow down, you know. And then you've got this kind of bond, and you all of a sudden like become. I realize that I'm running way faster than I would if I was by myself because he's pushing me on the downs. I'm pushing him on the ups, and you know we get to 120K, and it's been on both of our minds. And I finally break the silence. Kind of like Kilian breaking the silence with 10 miles to go at Hard Rock. And I'm like, okay, what's the plan here? Like, okay, let's talk. And we're both like, it would feel dirty to just like be, you know, slap the guy in the face and then sprint off. I mean, it doesn't sound rational. It doesn't sound like, you know, like believable almost. If I was hearing this, you know, like as somebody listening to the show, but it just wasn't right. And it was more of a thing that we accomplished together and we worked together and we had this friendship and this bond and we suffered, you know, together for so long. We're going to go and just get this shit done. And I was really proud, you know, I was really proud to finish with him. You know, a couple days later, I'm thinking about, oh, you know, I was stronger in the ups and we had that crazy climate, you know, could I get far enough ahead? But you know that's afterwards. But in the moment, this is what we were supposed to do. This is how it should have worked, and it was good. It was really good. And I don't mean to have this happen. And I'm not just like settling. And I'm you know the spirit of competition. You know I don't give a shit about that. No, it's just how it happened.
And I think too, like for a race like that, I ended up running with an Italian guy, and I think in a course like this you kind of need to double up with somebody. Like you kind of need to have somebody around just because it was so crazy. And so I think, you know, for both Jason and Diego to get to like hour 10, you know, like yeah, it would be really hard just to be like whatever, like I'm ditching you. Like I mean racing just does that sometimes. Like you just get to have like this bond with the person you're running with. And it's just like, we're going to do it. Like, we're going to finish. Like, we're getting it done together. And, you know, like mentally can take it out of you so much where.
Yeah, especially, you know, like a Hard Rock or this Oman thing or doing like an FKT attempt where there is that danger factor and unknown and it's a first year race. So that did kind of blew us.
I'm just fascinated by it. Diego Pazos is the other gentleman who finished simultaneously with Jason. I remember reading stupid reports after the Hard Rock finish because I love it. Like I love the fact that you and Kilian were able to run so much of the race together, and then it comes down to the last few miles, and you're like, what's the point? Like, what's the point of 100-meter dash? Yes, that's probably great for the cameras and for the spectators or whatever, but what does that prove? What does that prove? It proves nothing. So a part of me is like, I totally get it. And whenever I was reading these articles, I was like, man, that just pisses me off. Like, why can't we just be friends? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Nathaniel in the chat room has referenced also reading articles, and he says that some people have written that ties take away from the competitive aspect of racing. Having had 2 first-place ties, what's your opinion on the issue? I think you've kind of covered that.
Yeah, on it, like detracting from the competition side.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, most of the time it's not something I go in ever expecting or wanting, but then, you know, I was thinking about this exact question while I was running when we were getting into the second half, and I kind of got this feeling of like, you know what, screw you. This is about me.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care what you think of that race. I'm not racing for you. You know, I'm racing for me. And this is my experience. And, you know, yes, I'm an ambassador to the sport, but if this is right and this is what we want, you know, it's kind of, it's in our ballpark, you know, that's not something for you to judge about. And you can have your opinion, and you can like say, I would have done this. Okay, fine.
Yeah, they weren't there.
Yeah. So,
like, to anybody that says like, oh, that takes away from competition, BS. You weren't there. Like, you don't know. Like, until I think you're on like someone like Jason and Killian and
it was more valuable.
You know, like,
it's more valuable for me to stay at that point.
If you're on an elite level, like, I can't imagine what it's like for those guys to be out there like really pushing it for that long. Nobody really knows what that's like unless you're in that category, you know, to make that call.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
it is vastly different than other races to be in. I mean, I thought about that for Jason when I was running, because I knew all those guys were together, and I was like, oh my gosh, that must be so stressful and so hard to be pushing it that hard on this course like that. Like, you know, the women and typically most women were all spread out.
Kind of what you were saying, like, especially getting up to that last climb, you didn't see anyone, not even men or women.
Women's races set up different, and it's a little bit different when you are by yourself and maybe know like you have some time to spare than like in the guys' race where, you know, sometimes everyone's still together until the very end. And so to go through that and to be in that mindset for that long, you know, like, it just creates these unique situations that, you know, maybe people don't like it, but until you're in that situation, it's really hard to make that judgment call and to make that judgment on a racer.
And that glory of which one of us would have had that win wouldn't have outweighed the bond that we share now. And it sounds very, you know, bromance, but like Diego and I and Killian and I mean, it makes me almost emotional to think about what it felt like in that second half of that race. I mean, it was almost, you know, I get emotional anyways, but like then you share it with somebody else and it's like, oh, that was ours.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, you know, just like going on a trip that's fantastic by yourself versus with the partner that you love. That's a different experience.
Yeah,
right?
and that's I mean, really, like, that is like the celebration of our sport. You know what I mean? Like, we like at Run Rabbit Run, I had a guy that ran with me the last 20 miles, and you know what? Yeah, I tied with him. I mean, yeah, granted, I'm not going for the podium here with him, but you create these amazing friendships. I mean, that is almost why we do this sport. We experience it, and we go through really low times and we go through really high times, and it's the people that carry you through. And so I really think it's a celebration of our sport, and it's a celebration of doing what we do and how hard it really, really, really is to do on your own.
You don't get that in track and field, right?
I mean, so that's how I was going to kind of compare these two arguments. Is when you're out there for tens of hours, and it's not just, hey, we're casually running through the mountains together. It's like what you were describing, where you're pushing on the ups, hoping to break him or her, and pushing on the downs and hopefully moving ahead. Like, I've done this show now 240 times. We've had at least both sides, men and women of all capacities, talk about those moments where they knew they had it or they were trying to break that other person. So it's not for lack of trying. It's not like you're out there just, hey man, it's mile 10. Let's run these next 80 miles together. It's going to be great. Like, that's not what's going on. I can attest to that because I know you and I know that you race. So I get that there's that argument of like in a 10K, in a marathon, that sort of thing, you are pushing so hard to that finish line that a 100-meter dash at the end that's kind of part of it. But in these ultras that are 100, 140 kilometers, over 100 miles and beyond, I can't imagine that fine edge that you're riding those last few miles. I know my experience with my 100-miler. I know that I was a fraction of what I am as a human. Like, I am just a piece of what I am. Yeah. So I can't even imagine if you're pushing at that level and that caliber with another person for so long that you're not trying to tie, but you're also at that point where it's like, listen, this is special because this is our finish of this incredible first year race. And you obviously, I'm a fan. I'm a fan through and through. I want to shut down. There's no critics here in this chat room, by the way. Not at all. None. So, like, if that argument ever comes up, I'm like, fuck it, man. That is dumb. Tie all day long forever. It is about what you pulled out of that race. And it sounds like you both pulled some incredible memories out of that thing.
It turned out a little bit different, like Debo and, what was that? TDS. I mean, and I received that, and I think that's wonderful. But it just, that wasn't what Diego and I were experiencing, and that's okay. And make judgments, but that was what was going on, and it was gold. It was gold.
I love it, man. What a way to finish out 2018 as well. It sounds like you both just had incredible years. Mere, especially coming back from surgery and all that, like not knowing that. I think I remember seeing some posts and stuff about you dealing with certain things and knowing exactly what that was and how much it took out of your actual schedule is like, whew, man, the fact that you were able to turn that around is incredible.
And her first year as like a full-time athlete.
A full-time athlete too.
What a journey. And to finish it in a beautiful place. And, we haven't even mentioned the warmness, welcoming of the Omani people. We swam with sea turtles and like in live coral. You wouldn't believe that. I didn't think that was the case in the Persian Gulf. So, I mean, that as well, and us to be able to experience it together, it was magic. And then we both had those kind of races that we had, so it was special. And we got to capture them on film. It's going to be our
third episode.
Third episode of Run Around the World. So Ben Clark, and the race organization helped us capture this stuff. So I'm looking forward to it. And I think it's going to be really good too.
Yeah.
We're going to talk more about how the culture accepted you, your experiences there with the people, what you saw or felt. We'll talk about that in the after show here in just a couple of moments because there were some questions from our viewers about that. And I'm really curious about it too. So we'll talk about that in the after show. Before we do, of course, just going to briefly mention there are 2 episodes right now of Run Around the World that you both have produced from your trips to China. They're both available online. There's lots more episodes to come. I know you guys have a whole year of episodes planned next year, which sounds super, super awesome. So both of you, can you please let our live viewing audience and our podcast audience know where they can find you on social media, where they can find these episodes and stuff like that?
We're both Instagram lovers. Mere June. I'm sorry.
Yeah, my Instagram is Mere June, and then Jason's is just Jason Schlarb. But for the videos, you can YouTube them. You can just basically put in "Run Around the World," Meredith Edwards, Jason Schlarb, and they pop up. There's also it'd be great if you guys could reach out on Facebook and actually follow the page "Run Around the World." And so we have our own Facebook page, which those videos are then being released through. And for the next couple episodes, Our producer comes in this week. We actually will talk to him, but we're trying to figure out, do we run a Instagram right now? Just that's purely all that. And I think the answer will be yes, as these start to gain more popularity and there's a lot more going on that we'll do that. But for sure, follow our Facebook page, Run Around the World, and you can YouTube it as well.
Awesome. Make sure you follow them both on Instagram and check out these race videos. They are beautifully shot. They're beautifully edited. They're really, really fun, and they will inspire you to get out of your own comfort zone and go experience some fun global events. A big thank you to our two guests, Jason Schlarb and Mere June. They, I just dropped my phone. It probably broke. Merry Christmas. We're going to move into the after show with our two guests. Basically, if you would like to join us for this after show or any after show, or even go back and watch some of our archive versions, it's very easy. All you got to do is go to patreon.com/thegingerrunner for as little as $1 a month. That gets you access to all of our after shows and one-on-one access with our interviewees. It's supports this show. It supports this channel. It costs you less than a fraction of a cup of coffee, but it is wonderful to help support. So thank you so much to our wonderful guests. We'll see them in just a couple of seconds as we move into the after show. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Ethan.
You are welcome. This has been episode number 240 of Ginger Runner Live. Going into my baby voice. Awesome. Ginger Runner Live. Perfect. We'll see you guys next week for our final episode of 2018. It is our Gingermas episode. Gingermas is officially happening this coming weekend. It is a running free, by the way, running scavenger hunt where you accumulate points and we give away thousands of dollars worth of prizes. Nordic Track is hooking it up this year. We're giving away 2 grand prizes for a male and female winner of your choice of either their studio rower or their studio bike, both with iFit technology, which is awesome. We're giving away Ultra shoes. We're giving away Squirrel's Nut Butter stuff. Trails and Tarmac are hooking it up.
Gary Claus is hooking it up.
Gary is giving us tons of race entries to all of his races. Spring Energy. Injinji, I mean, listen, the list is long.
There's a lot.
The North Face, everything. So you'll want to participate this year. All of the info is going to be dropping in the coming days, with the final email with all the rules and stuff dropping on Friday. So stay tuned for that. We'll see you guys in the after show, or we'll see you guys next week. Am I forgetting anything?
I think that's it.
Get out there, train hard, race harder, and part of the hardest. I know I am. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.